Welcome to Chord of the Streams on this wonderful Friday, July 21st. I'm not Chord, I'm Orion, and I'll be hosting today as we start to discuss the new changes that are coming to crafting in Lotro. So, these are changes that we've been discussing for some time. The information obviously has been moving a little bit slower than we really expected. And one of the things that we've been trying to do along the way is keep you as informed as we possibly could on how the crafting refresh was actually going. So, how is the crafting refresh going? Well, the crafting refresh is going very well. We're at the point now where we're hoping by the release of Update 37, we are going to have all of the professions broken out from vocations, which means that if you have a current vocation, you'll retain your existing professions, nothing will change for them, you'll have them at the same levels, nothing should be altered in any way, shape, or form for the professions that are underneath a current vocation that you have maxed, that you have made complete in whatever proficiency you've actually attained over the years. The next thing is that we are hoping this won't be in Update 37, but it could be a pretty quick follow afterwards, or it might get pushed until Update 38 and the release of the expansion, unless something changes in there too. But right now, what we're looking to do is offer a fourth profession slot that would be available to anyone who actually wants to get another profession slot. So that's the first piece of information that's coming along with crafting. We'll be discussing a little more as we go along, but for now, I wanted to hop in and take a look at the first crafting event that we're going to be offering inside of Lord of the Rings Online. So, without further ado, we will bring up the client, which is currently on Bull Roarer, and the event just went down, which is fine, because I have the ability to do some things that will make it a little bit easier for us to do this. So let me just set this up here. So, as you can see, the event is down, and I'm going to set it up right now so that we can actually run it. And I believe there was a player here not that long ago, so we might actually run into another player at the same time, which would be great. Let me make sure that, yes, okay, good. So we'll do that, and now it should be all set for us to take the event. Now, the way this works is at Combe, there is, in Combe, or just outside of Combe, in the Chetwood, you can go to the Chetwood Lumber Yard, which is now populated with all these wonderful things that you can see, right? The crafting table, these flags, what are these all for? Why are there carcasses nearby? Why is Bowman suddenly touting that he's a barterer? Well, he is now a barterer. And over here we have the first of the two NPCs that will also appear during this event. Wilkenthorn, who happens to be the son of Mason Thorn, who runs the lumber camp, provides you with the initial quest, and when you talk to him, he tells you to go over and talk to Aldith Bowman. Aldith Bowman happens to be Old Bowman's daughter. And she is the judge in the competition. Or contest, I should say. So, the contest basically is when you start it off, you talk to her, and then the first person that registers lets everyone in Bree know that the contest is underway. So a contestant has now joined. We built in something a little different this time because we know that there have been events and contests in the past, or things that happened from a festival standpoint in the past, where if it requires more than one person to be around, there are times of the day when not everybody is there. So you might end up in a situation where you don't have anybody available. So what we've done is we've actually added in a failsafe that if you are here alone at some point during the day, you'll be able to take 2 minutes and wait, and then it will tick to the next stage of the actual quest. After 2 more minutes, it ticks to the third stage of the event. At the third stage, the quest advances, the event advances, and it lets you know that there are now 2 minutes before the event actually begins. This means that anybody that comes in during that time still has the opportunity to register. So you can have contestants from 1 to as many as can fit inside of the space at any given time. So we'll see. Well, no, that's not going to happen. So you'll be able to compete against other people, or you'll be able to compete alone, depending on how difficult it is during the day to find other folks online. So we are now waiting for this to advance. So we're going to cheat again because there's nobody on the server at this point in time. So we'll just take care of that. There we go. So now we have 2 minutes where I can talk about something else. Or I can give you a little preview. So let's do a quick preview while we have an opportunity here. As part of this, we have new items that are going to be available. And let's get rid of that. So the new items that will be available are... Oh, not working the way I want to. That's okay. We'll do that after. They are new cosmetic versions of your harvesting axes. So yeah, you can actually see them now. So the harvesting axes that you can get, these are new cosmetic versions. The first one is Elf, Dwarf, Hobbit, Gold, Westerness, Mithril, Stone, and Lossoth. Now those are the new ones that you'll be able to get by completing the quest a few times over, well, several times over, and then bartering them with Old Bowman over here. So this should be about to get underway, but before that happens, let's see if I can get a quick glance of these hide stretchers in too. Doesn't look like they're going to show up. No, I don't think they're going to show up. We'll do that. We'll do that one after too. So that'll be fine. All right. Let's hope this is ready to go. Don't worry. Any questions you have, you can definitely ask once we move on, because we're going to have plenty of time to have discussions about what's going on here. Oh, and of course, there it is. It's begun. So the first thing you have to do is get yourself a forester's axe. Now, things are a little tricky here. Not everything is going to be as it seems or as they normally function inside of all of our quests. So the first thing that I do is pick up a forester's axe. Now I have to find, and I have to collect stacks of wood from here in Comb. Well, the wood piles are here. Normally in crafting, you'd be able to just click on this wood pile. Doesn't do that here, because we wanted to make it a little bit different and require more interaction for you to actually have to go through and do things a little bit differently, so it's not as easy for those who know the game very well to move through it quicker than others. So we try to make it a tad more interactive at different points, and then we put in a couple of tricks at different points too. So those tricks that you'll see are coming up after this. Now I'm going to collect my 5th piece of unrefined wood. These will become unusable, as is standard in most of our quests, and now I have to find a crafting table. Well, the crafting tables are right over here, and as long as I get close to them, I'll be able to use them all over again. Now you want to pay special attention to what you're doing here. So I'm told that I need to collect 5 of these stacks of wood. And I'm crafting it the exact same way I did to collect them. Now, as I move further and further through here, you'll see that I've now collected 5. But if I'm not paying attention, and I didn't realize that I did that, I'd be able to craft more. So you're going to have to pay attention, just to make sure that you're not getting too many of what it is you're looking for. Once you've actually done that, you run back up the hill to Aldith, and you give her the wood that you have now refined.
Greetings, friend.
And she tells you, okay, you did a pretty good job. Now, go get some hides. So we have to find the skins that are nearby. Skins, fortunately, they've given us bear corpses that we can actually utilize to get the skins that we need. There are 3 of these, and anyone can use them. And yes, you're just going to skin like you normally do. You don't actually do this in the game itself, obviously, because you get the hides from the actual defeat of the mobs. But now you'll be able to skin these corpses, get the 5 skins that you need, and then I bet you know what the next part is, refining those. So here we go. We're almost done. We're on 4. And the last one, of course, will be 5. Now, not everything about the event is complete yet, so right now there are some things that players can do that could be considered griefing or cheesing or making it more difficult for others to complete. But we've gone out of our way to make sure that that's not going to happen once this gets to the live servers. In fact, the last commit that I'm going to have to make is probably today to get everything into the state that it needs to be, which means that everything that is here will stop you from using any of the skills that force anyone to emote, so serious business. They'll override any of the movement bonuses that you can get, so you can't run faster than anybody else. And the only movement effects that will be applied are those that are applied by the event itself. Everything else is pretty standard. But we want to make sure that this is as fair and as fun for everyone. So once you finish up with the hides, you go back to Aldith to let her know that you have actually completed all of these different hides that were necessary. And you run up the hill. And you speak to her. And she will tell you the next step. Which is...
What can I do for you?
Yes, it appears that you are nominally skilled with a skinning knife and hide stretcher. On to the next part of the competition. The feat of fortitude and strength. So she smiles at you and says, go get one of the beverages over the table beside my father's home and collect a caber. Then carry that caber through the red flags around the camp and finish at the blue flags. The first one through shall be declared the winner. And you have to make sure you continue the quest, because that would be very sad if you didn't do that. And once you get here, of course you do. You have a drink. And then you have another drink. And then you have another drink. Uh-oh. I'm pretty drunk. Now you pick up your caber. There was a bug that I found yesterday where when you pick the caber up and it disappeared, sometimes somebody could get stuck in the new caber that spawns, so I fixed that. So now the race has begun, and it looks like I'm actually racing against Elgo. So, alright, Elgo, let's see who gets there first. I think it's going to be close, because I think you're a little slower than me right now. I know tricks to get through this. Now, this part is all based off of, obviously, the horse races from our past. But what this is going to do is give you the opportunity to move through and actually race against your other competition inside of this little race. And I think he's going to win because he's really far ahead of me now. But my effect should be wearing off very soon. There it goes. And the course is a little bit strange. You have to really pay attention on the first couple times through. There are little areas where you can get hung up, and it's meant to be more of a just fun little side thing rather than a true test of how good you are with movement and getting through the game while carrying a caber, because you don't really carry cabers very often inside of Lord of the Rings Online. But in this particular case, you're showing how cool you are. Oh, and look, they waited for me so I can actually show them what happens when you come in first and second. So we'll let them win. After you. Alright, you're going to make me win? Nope, you go. Perfect. So when the first person goes through, they get the winner flag. When the second person goes through, they'll see a pop-up that says that they are the runner-up. I received a runner-up ribbon. And when you close the quest out, you receive a participation ribbon. Now, the important thing here is that the goal that we have with these events is that one will exist for every single profession that we have inside of the game. To begin with, we started with Forester because it was fairly easy, centralized in a new player location, and something that is kind of indicative to what you do for the crafting system inside of the world, by going around and picking things up while you're just adventuring around the world itself. So we have set this up so that all of the rewards that you get from the quest itself give you tokens. And those tokens are winner ribbons, runner-up ribbons, and participation ribbons. Those ribbons are contributed to by every single one of the profession events that we'll be building over time. So those professions include, obviously, farmer, forester, prospector, scholar, cook, woodworker, metalsmith, armor. I said metalsmith, weaponsmith, and the other two, which I'm blanking on, jeweler, and whichever the last one is. I know there's a 10th, but my brain is a little fried at the moment. But yeah, you'll be able to use all 10 of those as you move through the game world, and you'll be able to find an event for every single one of these at some point in time. And all of the rewards will filter into the participation, runner-up, and winner ribbons, which are then used to barter with any of the barter reward vendors that will be available. The first one is Old Bowman. Now, Old Bowman has the Forester event rewards. When we add more of the Forester events, because the plan is not to just stop at one event for each of the professions, but many scattered throughout the world. The first one will be here in Combe. The second lumber event is very likely to happen in Rohan, because there's a nice lumber yard there as well. But all of the barter vendors for the individual professions will exist at those locations and all have the same items. These first initial items are the first offering and are indicative of the rewards that will come out with each of the profession events as we move forward and build them out throughout the entirety of the game. So the first thing that you see is this new modifiable Forester's Axe. And this doesn't really do all that much, except for it's modifiable. We're going to get into that in just a couple of minutes. I'm going to go through everything else first. Then you have the Luckstone setting. This is another thing that's really important for the future of crafting, so we'll get into that one in a few seconds. The Cosmetic Dwarf Hatchet makes it so that you can see those hatchets that we showed in the beginning. Same with the Elf, the Hobbit, the Westerness, the Primitive, the Ornate, and the Gold Hatchets, and of course, the Mithril Hatchet at the end. And all of these have an increased cost based off of how cool they kind of look, because you're showing off, and that's what you're trying to do. There are also whetstones. The whetstones are going to increase the critical chance for Forester skills, and it's basically just sharpening your axe for a period of time. And you get 3 in each stack. The highest one, obviously, lasting for a little bit longer than the other 2, which only last for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 30 seconds, and then 5 minutes at the max level one. You can also get new titles. Now, the titles are bugged on the on Bull Roar right now because they don't have they don't have the right text in them. What they say right now is farmer, your name, and then sleeps at night, feels strong, hacks all day, so on and so forth. The farmer's been removed. We fixed that bug, so it won't be there anymore. But all of these, if you're familiar with a rather famous group of individuals from the Isle of Britain, you'll know that this is a nod and a wink, and maybe more of an homage to the lumberjack sketch from Monty Python. So we are trying to inject a little bit of fun here to make sure that you realize this is really fun, right? So you've got the titles of Sleeps at Night, Feels Strong, Hacks All Day, Cuts Down Trees, Eats Their Bread, Drinks Their Bread, Hangs in Taverns, and the last one, I'm a Lumberjack. The other thing that you can do with the event is you can transfer your winner's ribbons down into runner-up ribbons, or you can move your participation ribbons up to winner's ribbons or runner-up ribbons. Same thing is true for runner-up ribbons moving up and down as well. And again, the costs are still mutable, but the costs are set this high because there will eventually be 10 of these events that are going to run in a row. The end goal is when we have all 10 professions available, we'll run one event type, so one profession event, for about 4 days, and then that particular event will go on cooldown for about 21 to 28 days, depending on how long we end up staggering out that particular set of events. And then a new profession would move into that space. These professions can be done, these events, I should say, can be run once a day by any character on your account and world that have that profession. So if you wanted to, you could participate in these over and over again with different characters, or for the modest cost of 5 mithril right now, you can reset them whenever you'd like to on your existing character. But the rewards are shared through your entire account and world, which means that if I get it on this character and then created another character and went through the the actual quest event again, I would get whatever rewards, and I'd be sharing that between all of my characters on that account. Moving on, there are several different garments that you can purchase. The Dusky Forester's Garment, the Royal Forester's Garments, the Crimson, which is what I'm currently wearing, and I'll go down and pose in a bit, the Gold, and finally the Mithril. Then there are new emotes that are associated. There's a Logger, Lumberjack 1, Lumberjack 2, Lumberjack 3, and Lumberjack 4, and we'll show those off too. You can also get a new competitive Forester trait, and that trait just increases your baseline critical chance for Forester recipes. Now, this may not be the case for every single profession, but it's likely that these will exist for all of the professions in some way, shape, or form, so that every profession will have some kind of a boost that they can get by completing the actual event a few times over. And these are set for participation ribbons for the easiest ones, and then it moves up a little bit further in cost. There's also 2 new skills. Now, these aren't functioning the way that they're supposed to right now on the Bull Roar server. Like I said, the final commit is going in today, so that should be ready to go for the next test around. But what these do is they enable you to move around the world while holding a caber, moving at a slower speed, and then moving at your normal speed to show how strong you truly are and how good you really are as a Forester. It's more bragging rights. And then the last pieces are these new axes. So let's get into the next stage of the actual crafting refresh or update that we're actually making to crafting, so that it becomes a little more clear as to why there are these new recipes that are available that enable me to change my Forester, my new Forester's axe that I can get from this competition or contest, and turn it into something different. So let's take a look here. I know I've already crafted one, but let's see if I can just get another. So I'll get a second one. I believe I set myself up to have enough to do this. Let's make... Sure, we'll do the dwarf. And then let's get the dwarf recipe. Oh, I'm not going to be able to do that right now. That's right. That's right. There are a couple of things that would block me from doing this. So the long and short of it is that you're going to be able to get these and upgrade them over time. Misery? So this is the introduction of a new feature for the crafting abilities inside of the game, and that is upgradable crafted items. The final items that we're going to be allowing players to craft are still not determined, but they are likely going to be 1 to 3 different items that crafters can make, and they will fall under the any of the crafters who can make things that are worn inside of the paper doll that they'll be able to upgrade. And as I said, there will be 3 of them. Very likely 1 to 3 that are going to actually end up being upgradable items. Now, what does this mean? It means that you'll be able to craft an item that will have the quality on it or a name on it that says modifiable, upgradable. We haven't decided what the final name will be. Right now for the Forester's Axe, it's modifiable. That means that you are able to add pieces to that over time. And the way that you'll add those pieces is by using Luckstone settings. The amount of Luckstone settings that you'll have to use is dependent upon the recipe itself and the upgrade that you're actually moving to. So what we've done in this particular event is set it up so that we can give you a preview of how that might work. So I'm going to purchase 1 Luckstone setting here, and then I'm going to go and make sure that I've got my recipe to make the Dwarf Forester's Axe. And then I'm going to get my Cosmetic Dwarf Hatchet, and then I'm going to go and get my Forester's Axe, my racial Forester's Axe recipe to make this. And now we should be good. So like all recipes, you have to learn them, and they are one shot. The result of the actual... Oh, did I get my dwarf? I did. Okay. And you'll notice that I do not have the luckstone setting in my inventory, and I'll show you why in just a moment. So when I go to the workbench, I can run over here, go to the workbench, choose Forester, and you'll see that I have the Dwarf Forester's axe available to make. So I will make it, or I will try to make it. Oh, because I don't have my Forester's axe equipped. There we go. So I'm now making my Forester's axe. Right now the cosmetic is not coming through, but it will in the future, that whenever you use your modified axe, which now has a cosmetic appearance to it, in this case it would be dwarf, you'll be able to see that when you're crafting. Now as soon as I did that, and yes, it's going to bind as soon as you make it, it's not going to be on equip. That's another small change that we've made so that it is account bound. Yes, I said account bound. You're going to be able to make this and then trade it to your characters on your account. So the next one requires 2 luckstone settings and a Dwarf Forester's axe. And I bet I don't know, I don't have it in inventory. Because I loaded it. So let's go get another luckstone setting and then I can show you where those come from. Luckstone setting for the win. So the luckstone setting is a new item that we're adding to the game that is going to be used in upgrading any of the crafting items that can be upgraded. You will need any number, depending on which they are, what the level is that you're moving to, or the tier of item that you're moving to.
Day.
And they go onto your character in your wallet, so that you do not have to carry them around. It does not take up space. It is just something that you can take and then put onto any of the new upgradable items that you can create through the crafting system. Now that means that we wanted to also ensure that they are set up to have a limit, because we want you to use them. We want you to actually engage in the system, so you won't be able to take these all around. The other thing is that these will be account bound as well, so that you can have 15 of them across your entire account. All of your crafters will share them. So now I'm going to take this, and because it was equipped before, I couldn't use it, but now that I've got it unequipped, I will turn this into the first upgraded version of the Dwarf Forester's axe. So the Dwarf Forester's axe right now is a -3 second chopping duration. These stats are all subject to change. And once this is complete, you'll see that I have a new one that is -4 with a 2% chance to critical. Now, this also doesn't have the new ability on it that we are giving to these upgraded items. These upgraded items will have a 4-second cooldown, will increase the critical chance success of Forester actions by, I think it was 4% per tier. So at tier 20, at tier 5, I believe they will be a 20% critical bonus. And they will also receive a chance when you are harvesting wood nodes out in the wild to provide you with an extra rare material from the level of that node. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you go out and you get Rowan, for example, you would get the rare version of the wood or the rare drop of honey or resin that we used to give as part of that reward. Now it's only a potential. It's up to a 5% chance at the tier 5 version of the item itself, or the Forester's axe itself, that enables you to get that bonus. And there might be another way too. Things that are lucky tend to do things like that. And you might not even need one of these new weapons, these new Forester's axes to do that. You'll probably have to play around with some things. We're going to keep a little something hidden for a while. Now, as you can see, I have... I should probably take my shield off, because really, who wants to see the shield right now? You can see that we have our outfits on. This is the Crimson Lumberjack outfit. That is the Royal Blue. That is the Gold. That is the Dusky, or Dark. And then the last one is the Mithril. Each of these comes with the bragging rights that you have completed all of those Forester events, or just events in general, that many times. So, those are the beginnings of the Forester event. So let's take a look at these emotes. We have the Logger. Oh, I didn't buy it. I thought I bought all of them. Don't worry, I'm gonna get
I'm
gonna get to all your
Did
questions.
you need something?
Just a little bit. There we go. Let's get that. And let's learn that. Okay. So as a logger, you can show off a big log that you can carry around. You can't move around with it. It does disappear after a short period of time. But as a lumberjack, you can show off the things that you've earned and done. My stone axe. My Lossoth axe. My golden axe. And my mithril axe. That's a preview of the event. Now let's move on to the most important thing. What are we doing when it comes to the changes for crafting? One of the things that we looked at when we sat down and decided that we wanted to actually do a refresh for crafting this year was to separate the professions from the vocations. We've spoken about that fairly often over the past few months. The next step is to make it a little easier for crafters to engage in that next tier. So, for the tier that releases with the next expansion, you will not have to get the previous tier of proficiency in order to move on to that tier. You will be able to move in immediately so that you don't have to get any of the previous tiers to start working on proficiency for the new tier. This means that you are going to start immediately gaining that proficiency and move through those particular recipes even faster. We think that's a good change, and that's a change that we want to try to move back in time. Back in the different levels of the game. Sorry, not in time. But we want to move those back through the game so that there are opportunities for you to see that at the different breaks that we have that were organic to begin with. So that's one of the first big changes. Another big change is these upgradable items. The upgradable items are going to enable you to craft a base item, then use luck stones to enhance those items to the point where they gain new abilities. The first one might be that it adds an essence slot. The second tier might be that it adds a second essence slot. The third might be that it gets some kind of a new bonus that is bespoke to that particular item. But each one will have between 3 and 5 tiers that will enable you to advance that item over time. And I know the next question is going to be, are we going to have to raid to get these? Are we going to have to do X to get these? What we're trying to do is make it so that when you are crafting, you are crafting. We don't want you to be forced into situations where you have to play the game in a way that you don't normally play the game. So we want to try to make this more equitable for those crafters who don't necessarily want to engage in the end game. So the luck stones will be available here. They will also be available very likely as ways that you can go through your crafting guild to earn them. Whether that is on a daily or weekly basis has not been determined, but your craft guild will be another way that you can earn the luck stones over time. A lot of the recipes will be tied to your craft guild or found in the world just off of normal treasure drops that happen out in the wild. The next portion of this is the we want to take crafting and we want to make the gear that you're making something that is desirable, not just by you, but by other characters and players in the game as well. So that means that some of these items are actually going to be stepping stones to get you into, say, instances, or to get you into raids, enabling you to move. So it's not going to be something that is super easy to build those, but it's also not going to be daunting. We want to turn this into a more fun experience for you so that it's easier for you to really engage in the crafting system, have fun in the crafting system, feel the advancement that you want inside of the crafting system, and contribute to other players who are playing the game. So that means that you will end up making gear that will enable people to get into instances, get through those faster, and you'll be able to make that upgradable gear that will compete on the same level with gear that you get inside of raids. That's our goal. And now let's get to some questions. And I think I'm going to do my best to make sure that this doesn't get out of hand in the background, but we'll see. I might have to switch to the spinny dot. So let's see. Your questions.
Also, hello.
Hey,
this is
Gord.
Cordovan. I happen to be lurking in chat or in audio chat here. If you hit N, you'll turn off names. Might not be a bad idea.
Sure, that's true. Okay, so let me... Oh no, I lost my screen. There we are. All right. Let's go back and see what everybody is asking. I expect that there's going to be a lot of questions here. Oh, that's not a real question. And yes, you did beat me as you went through the race. Totally fine. Yeah, so those are the first axes and I should say crafting tools that we've actually created. This is going to open up a lot of different a lot of different cosmetic ways that we can start to enhance your character over time. So we started with a fairly small suite of these where you have you have a dwarf, you have an elf, you have the Westerness, you have Hobbit, and then you've got the Lossoth Stone, Gold, and Mithril. We can continue adding on to those. And while these initial rewards are available for the event, these events are going to go on hopefully in perpetuity for the game, which means that you'll be able to go back into the reward structure whenever you wanted to. So we want to add more rewards over time. This is the first offering that we're putting out there, and I know that I saw a couple of questions on the garb. Yes, the garb is something that right now is was a little easier for us to put out. It was much faster for us to get there because this is the first event. But that doesn't mean we're not going to add the checkered version at some point in the future, or lumberjack toques rather. You're going to end up seeing more and more of these cosmetics available over time. We're also going to work on getting these in for housing as well, so you'll be able to do housing pieces and have the housing objects that you can show off as well. Let's see. Those benches will not be staying there regardless of the event status. They're only there for the event. But there is a workbench that exists over in the corner where you can always go and craft inside of inside of the Chetwood Lumberyard. There are many bars, Aaron Bard, throughout the entirety of Lord of the Rings, and notoriously, the professor himself was known for frequenting one of the bars that he named, or I should say inns that he named inside of the Shire that we've paid homage to in the Shire with his other writers at the time. So we're trying to, we're not saying that this is something we're condoning. It's just, it's a fun little event. So the first question that I see is from Zeus Bonner asking, when will the crafting abilities get to have 4 professions? We are hoping that we are going to have that in for sometime in between update 37 and the release of update 38. At the latest, it should be in for the release of update 38 that you'll be able to purchase the 4th profession. I just want to know, why are they needing all the stats? Which stats are, well, Salvage, if you can get back to me on which stats you're talking about, I can probably... Oh, nerfing all the stats. I see. Now that I read a little further down, why we're nerfing the stats. So I'll save that for a little bit later on. We can talk a little bit about the stat changes so that we can then have a discussion about that too. Let's see. Do you think the prices and the amount of ribbons are too much? They are purposefully set high. We know that this seems really exorbitant right now because there's only one of these that's available. But we know that over time we're going to have 10 that are available, and you'll be able to play them every day if you so choose. We also know that the trade-up system is really, really good if you win, and slow if you don't, which is why there are deeds that are associated with actually playing through the crafter events that will augment the amount of items that you're receiving, and participation winner and runner-up trophies that you get, or ribbons that you get, so that there are opportunities for you to continue moving up with more and more of the rewards and more of the deeds that you complete. So we do think that it is high. Certainly looks high at this point. But once all of the reward structure is in, we know about how fast you're going to be able to progress through it if you lose every time. And we know that if you don't lose every time, you will be able to progress through it pretty quickly. So let's make sure that there are no more hooligans trying to ruin the stream here. I'm sure they'll still try to find a way to ruin the stream. But the goal is that we will definitely need to find a way to make sure that you are earning these at a fairly regular pace, so that if you were trying to get luck settings, you can. With that said, luck settings being a liquid portion of the crafting system will have to be put into the game in different spots, which is why guilds seem to be a very good location for them to be. As I said, like on a daily or a weekly basis, you'll be able to get some of those from that particular axis of acquisition. You'll also be able to get them very likely through the delving system or the featured instance system. Sometimes maybe they'll even drop on raids, and who knows, maybe you'll be able to find them in some of the inside some of the nodes that exist in the world. But the point is that you will have access to the Luckstone settings because they will be such an integral part of upgrading that gear that crafters can now make at the higher end of the game. And you do get, at minimum, 2 participation ribbons per day from each character that plays an event. So Aaron Bard, you brought up the competitive rather than collaborative again. Just because this first one is competitive doesn't mean there won't be collaborative ones in the future. This just happens to be the first thing that we built. And the first one that we built is more competitive in nature than it is obviously collaborative. So how many ribbons per day can you get? Per day you can get 1 participation ribbon guaranteed, and then an ability to get a runner-up ribbon or a winner's ribbon, depending on how that goes. So if you win, you get the winners, which is tradable for 100 of the participation. If you get the runner-up, you get that, and then you can trade that for 10 of the participation ribbons, or you can trade 100 participation ribbons up to 1 runner-up, or 10 runner-up to a single winner. It's not that convoluted, and it ends up being a pretty steady pace at which you'll get them, especially when we start working the deeds in, and the deeds actually are providing you with the extra bonuses of what you need. All right, let's keep moving on here. No, not okay. So the question that I'm now seeing from Aaron Bard is, what is left of the game without these new items? These new items are not necessary by any way, shape, or being. They are just not. You don't need to have these at all in order to be able to play the game or engage in crafting at all. What you'll need them for is legitimately just the fact that you want to show them off, right? Or to use them. They are not necessary. You don't need them. Uh, they are not going to have any true terrible impact on the game itself. They're just going to be a new option that you have. All systems won't end up that way. This is just a new event that we're putting out as something that is available for players who want to do something a little different. And we are not putting them behind raids. We're not putting them behind instances. We're putting them on something that is more casual, more hopefully fun, because that's really the goal of these, is for them to be fun, rather than being something that you have to daunt. You have to dauntingly press into in order to get them. Let's see. Moving on. Let's see. Any other questions here? Can we get a pet that will help us harvest stuff? So, ironically enough, we had a little discussion this morning amongst some folks about potential pets. They would probably be more cosmetic than anything, but I won't deny that there is a very good chance in the Prospector event that you might have control over a worker who's going to help you muck up some of the materials that you're breaking free of the ore at the time that you're actually part of the event. Thinking about that one a little more. There is a plaid shirt. There is a plaid shirt that is currently available from Fragments. That is something that will very likely find its way into this reward structure over time, as will housing items, and those housing items will likely be usable to give you short-term cosmetic effects like this. Those will end up being something that you can get, again, through this particular event system that we're putting in. All right. Is crafting skill-based? So, you mean if you're asking about the event, no. It doesn't matter what proficiency you have, as long as you have the proficiency, as long as you have that profession, you are able to participate in this event. It means that you'll be able to be a level 1 forester with no proficiency who just has the profession itself and participate, or you can be a tier 14 proficient forester and come back and actually play the event whenever you want to. If one does not like instances or raids, what options does one have as a crafter to get them? I think I went over that. If there's still a question on that, please let me know. As I said, guilds, guild dailies, guild weeklies, these new events, there's a very good chance they'll be in delvings, instances, potentially landscape, and featured instances too. There will be ways for you to get the luck stones. These particular items that are actually set for the event itself will very likely stay as part of the event for a period of time before we would even consider opening them up to other avenues of acquisition. All right. You answered my question about post-level 100 gear on the forums, but will you go back to earlier tiers to bring them up to speed? So, if you're talking about the crafted gears, the intent is to be able to go back through the different crafting tiers eventually. But that's not as high a priority right now as getting the next tier ready and making it so that you don't have to be proficient in all the previous tiers to participate in it. Gussie Marie asks, how long until this system starts? So with update 37, the event will be in, which features the first new item that can be modified. And then after that, with the expansion on U38, the new proficiency levels will be in, and the new items will be available through crafting at that point that can be upgraded. Will the new tool require us to free up inventory slots, since combination tools will no longer be the best? Combination tools will still be at the tip top. The only difference is that you'll have a very small chance to get the bonus items if you have these new Forester axes available. And eventually, yes, there would be Scholar Loops, and there would be Prospector mining picks as well. Those, the goal is that once all of the different professions are in and all of the different profession tools are built, there will be a way for you to combine all those together. This will be a permanent, Zeus asks, will this event be a rotating event or a permanent event? The goal is that these will be rotating events that are permanent inside of the game world, so that when say Forester is on cooldown, perhaps Prospector is next, followed by Cook, followed by Farmer, followed by XYZ, so that they are continuously moving along together and sometimes overlapping so that there can be multiple events running at the same time. The goal is 4 days on and then 21 to 28 days off. We do need to have a tool for each profession. You will eventually need to have one for each. Recipes cannot be sold at auction, and the items will be account bound. Are we going to check the healer battle? Okay, we'll get back to that one in a minute. We'll talk about the healing stats in just a minute. Okay. Let's see. Is it possible to change the show-off animations? They're kind of odd to have them like that. I don't know what you mean by that, Zip. But they are probably going to stay where they are. Will the crafting updates impact endgame PvE or PvP gearing, or is it another parallel or separate way the gearing similar to the delvings? They would be parallel to everything else, so that they would. The way the crafting is going to work is it will augment things that you're getting from instances, augment things from raids, so that it is kind of separate. So you can have a set that you've built for yourself, not a set, sorry. So you can have gear that you're creating for yourself as a crafter that will be roughly equivalent to that as someone who goes through and raids in the end game. But it will take an appreciable amount of time, like it does for raiders, to get the gear that you want to be built to the level that you want to be built at. Is the hunter work expected in U38 or between 37 and 38? Hunter is next on my plate and will be U38. There's a question here that I'm not going to answer because just there's no reason to answer it. Eventually, yes, all professions will have their own events. Any thoughts on adjusting the amounts of raw materials needed for refined materials? It's a good question. That is very likely something that we will be implementing as part of the new proficiency at the top end, so that it might require you to have more of the materials in order to make the refined version of the material. That is something that just kind of makes sense, that you need more of something in order to make it stronger, better, so on and so forth. So eventually, when all the professions have their own events, we could expect to see these running like every weekend. Yes, you could expect to see an event running every day that is out there in different areas of the world. Any thoughts of that answered that one? Will things like farming animations of say apple trees be leaving? Probably not. I'm not quite sure what that question is, Aaron Bard. All right. Can we make a rework concerning the stacks of crafted items like scrolls and pots tokens from 50 to 100? We can look into that. Anything that would be non-performant, obviously we wouldn't want to put in, but we could certainly take a look to see whether or not that's something we can make an update to. It also does not advance proficiency in that profession. No, actually it does. This is meant to be an augmented way for you to be able to engage in the crafting system as a whole. So participating in the craft event does indeed give you crafting experience when you play the event. When will you get the option to have a 4%? I think I mentioned that. Hopefully sometime between 37 and 38. I think we're shooting for the next round of Bull Roar, hopefully for next week. It depends on how things go this weekend, but the goal is to have another one next week, and at least a third one, potentially a fourth before U37 goes live because of the big changes. Do we have any hints of the places where other crafting places will be? So I can tell you that there is definitely a plan to make a cooking event in the Shire that will be called Mithril Chef Shire. It is something that I have dreamed about making for about 15 years.
Yes, for about 15 years. As I mentioned, there's a very good chance that there will be another Forester event in Rohan. The first Scholar event, I'm considering the libraries of Minas Tirith. If not Minas Tirith, then there's a good chance the Matham House. If not the Matham House, then there's a good chance that it'll be somewhere in Elrond's library or around Elrond's library at the Last Homely House. There are many places in the world that we can put these, and that we'll make sure that it makes sense when we actually add them, so that players of all levels can get there, since they are going to be level agnostic. All right, let's see. What about the idea to increase the number of crafting events? What reduces the rewards? We want to be pretty large. The way that I have tried to explain the system to folks is the rewards that we're putting out there are very much indicative of what we have had, at least on the east coast of America for a long time. Way back in time, we had what were called skee ball parlors, and you would be able to play skee ball and get tickets, and then take those tickets and exchange them at a prize desk, which basically had a prize wall. The goal is that you're earning these ribbons to pick things off of the prize wall that you want, and it's going to be available for all of the different professions, and all of the tickets feed into the same thing so that you can end up with them. I'm sorry, Castellan, it might be my microphone that makes it a little bit quieter. I do apologize for that. Would minstrel instruments ever be upgradable via the new crafting system? Potentially. We haven't decided which ones will be. Will events be near crafting halls? We may put them near crafting halls. That's all going to depend. There won't be any changes to existing crafting and harvesting experiences, other than you might get some bonus things when you're doing any of the harvesting work. Presumably, you want to keep these events in a relatively low, at least to start with. Yes, the events will stay in lower level areas to start with, because we want to make sure that anyone can engage with them. But that does not mean that they won't move. There have been some questions as to whether or not we can move these into have specific travel routes to them or milestones near them. I would prefer to stay away from dropping milestones next to wherever the events are, because I think that would be really artificial. But having potential specialized horse routes might be something that's possible. We'll take a look at that. Give me one moment, please. All right, sorry about that. If luck stones are being implemented, are they going to replace or be an alternative to present crit materials? They're going to be additive. They will not make it so that the item will crit. They will make it so that you can upgrade specific items. And again, the number of items that will be upgradable is still something that we don't know. We don't know exactly where those positions will be, but they will definitely be part of the new crafting refresh that we are going through. Let's see, potential for fishing to be one of the events. Fishing is a hobby, so it would not be part of the crafting. All right, it looks like we're now ready to talk briefly about the stat changes. So the stat squish is staying. We needed to do the stat squish. The numbers and displays were getting out of control. We wanted to try to get that back into a position where we could start making it easier to read as part of the UI. The changes to main stat and the derivations thereof is something that we are going to be pulling back out of Aurora. I know that there have been a lot of questions as to why we were doing that. The reason we're doing that is over the years we have made it very possible and easy for players to maximize all of their different statistics and all of their different masteries and ratings across the board. It makes it so that creating new gear that is both desirable and perceived as useful to you players has become more and more difficult. So one of the goals with the stat derivation changes is to give us more flexibility and a way that we can start customizing. I should say customizing, a way that we can start making gear that is more enticing and varied and easily altered in a way that you might pursue something different than you normally would. Rather than being pigeonholed into getting one or two statistics, you'd be pursuing three or four, so that there are a spread of things that you're looking to. And then, of course, we would have to build that gear to ensure that you'd be able to get to the same levels that you were at before. But this all goes hand in hand with other changes that we've made, where where we're working on stat caps, and then the hard cap versus soft cap variety, where there will be times as we continue to develop and design the game where some monsters will be able to lower your stat cap, but not your your hard caps, but not your soft caps. So you'll be able to overcap and have more defense against certain things, or not in certain cases. The the reason that we wanted to do things like this was because we didn't feel it was fair to you as players and to designers either, that the only way we could actually do some significant damage was to obviate a lot of your statistics, or just eliminate them. So we wanted to move back to a place where the game system, specifically the combat system, had more of the direct competitive nature of those statistics, rather than at different points us saying, well, you just can't block these attacks. So we want to make it so that partial block has more fundamental value, because you can always partial block. You'll always be able to go through a partial block stance rather than, or a partial parry or a partial evade, things along those lines. It was not an ideal initial release, which is why we will pull it back. We will get it again, make it make more sense. The main concern that I saw initially focused around virtues and how virtues were negatively affected and impacted by the changes to the main stat derivations and the main stats that were updated. Again, that's being done to give us and you more flexibility from a gearing standpoint, and we will continue to work on it until we get it to a point where it makes sense for all the classes, and makes sense for how things are distributed currently throughout the game. We also know that we need to make sure that that is something that is geared correctly, so that you are able to get back to where you feel that you're functioning at the same levels that you were before. And I have indeed taken up all of Cordovan's time. I'm sure that he is crushed that I did so. I don't actually have... Well, I guess I could fire up the client again and show you River Hobbits real quick, at least in the preview screen, so you can see what they look like. Because this is now out there as part of the Bull Roar test server. But yes, if there are any other questions, I will put a note up today about the changes that we discussed here about crafting, and I'll monitor it over the weekend and answer any questions that you have there. And if there are any other quick questions before we shut the stream down, feel free to ask. I am going to just give one quick preview of the River Hobbit, once everything comes back. I cannot confirm the classes for River Hobbits yet. They currently look to have the ability to be all the different classes except for Bjorning. There is a chance that they will lose a couple of the classes. There are some that just don't make sense. And the one that I don't want to say is near the bottom of the list. Because I know that there are a lot of people who are very excited to be able to play potentially a Hobbit. This one. We will see exactly where they end up, probably in the next couple of, certainly by the end of Bull Roar, the beginning of Bull Roar 3, we should know exactly where they end up. I think our hope, and the reason that we have each one at least visibly available here, is that we would like them, to be available. And if you have a question about whether they would potentially be the new class, well, considering that they are river hobbits, yeah, they're definitely going to be able to fit that one. Right. Let's see if there's any new questions. Okay. New to Lotro, don't know if it's a good question, but will you be updating the UI soon? So UI is one of those things that we continuously are looking to improve. We don't have a timeline on when it will happen, but it certainly is something that we would like to adjust at some point in the future. At 160 days per axe, you don't see the event being popular. It may be that this one event is not as popular as we want it to be, but again, the goal is that every profession will have these, and you'll be augmented, and not all the rewards will be the exact same. Some may actually reward you differently. This is the first one. Things had to be a little bit different because we don't have the wide breadth of other inputs into the reward set at this point. So we need to be a little bit conservative of how, a little conservative about how we mete out the rewards because there is only one available. When things move into the point where there are 10, it will be a lot easier to see how they're going to be done. Let's see. Anything else? How many houses are you? I don't think I'm going to buy any Lindleby houses, honestly. I prefer dwarves. All right. With that, I think it's time for us to close this week's edition of Court of the Rings. Thank you for having me. I hope that the information that you learned here has excited you for the upcoming changes to crafting. And there will be more information that is coming out about that in the future. And at some point, I'll probably be back here talking about either new monster play stuff that might be going in or other things that will be changing in the near future with regards to Lord of the Rings Online. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.